Good evening, everybody. Uneducated Economist here. So, in this video, I wanted to kind of do a quick review or a portion review of the speech given by Christopher Waller. I think it was yesterday or today. Let me look here. It was given July 17th, 2024, and the title of the speech is Getting Closer. I left a link down in the description. Given by Christopher Waller. This is the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve at the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. Now, in this particular speech, he's talking about, some of the issues that we are now facing within the economy, including inflation and all that other stuff. But he gets to a really good point in the speech in which that he talks about the scenarios in which that it would take for there to be interest rate cuts or not, right? And so he talks about three scenarios, and I thought that they were pretty good. Now, we have to remember Christopher Waller is just one of the voting members on the FOMC. There are 12 voting members, five alternates, two economists. Anyway, there's like 18 people who are on the FOMC, 18, 19 people. 12 of them are voting members, and those alternate through. And Christopher Waller is a voting member at this time. Anyway, in this speech, he talks about these three scenarios. And I just kind of wanted to review these three scenarios because I think they're pretty telling. And if you kind of internalize what it is that Christopher Waller is saying about it, then you're probably going to have a better idea of what it is that the entire Federal Reserve, FOMC, is at least somewhat thinking, right? Not all of them may have the exact same opinion, but they may have a somewhat similar idea of what it is that Christopher Waller is also feeling. So in the first scenario, right, he goes on to say this. The first scenario is an optimistic one. Now remember, this is what it would take in order for there to be interest rate cuts. He says, here we continue to receive more very favorable CPI inflation reports, with implications for very favorable PCE inflation readings as well. This would give us a nice run of inflation data starting in May. I see a significant but not high probability of this scenario occurring. And in that circumstance, I would have much greater confidence in inflation moving sustainably towards 2%, or moving towards 2%. In this scenario, I would envision a rate cut in the not too distant future. Now, this is important to understand because this is where everybody thinks that the rate cuts are coming in the not too distant future. Right? And so when we think about what it is that he just said, he talks about there being a favorable situation, favorable in the CPI inflation reports and favorable in the PCE inflation readings as well, right? He says, I see a significant but not high probability of this scenario occurring. So this is important to understand because even though a lot of people are feeling that the not too distant future is going to be here for rate cuts, what he is saying that it would take is not probable, not in his view, right? It's not I see a significant but not high probability of this scenario occurring. So just right there, that was what it would take in order for there to be interest rate cuts in the near future or the not too distant future. The second scenario is a bit less optimistic, but probably more likely to occur. So this is his scenario. This is his idea. In this case, the inflation data comes in uneven. Really? Okay. Surprise, surprise. Not as good as previous few months, but still consistent overall with progress on bringing inflation down towards 2%. Here, with the uneven data, it would be a matter of timing as to when I thought we were making sustainable progress to 2% inflation. In this case, a rate cut in the near future is more uncertain. Now, when I think about that uncertainty, when it comes to what's going to be happening within the markets, because that's really what he was saying. It was just like it becomes uncertain. That is the Federal Reserve attempting to hold on to the future credible threat theories. If they lock it in with a guaranteed interest rate cut, they lose the ability to push the idea of what it is that's coming into the future and then getting the markets to participate in it. If they lock that in, if they say there is going to be rate cuts, they have no longer the ability to then adjust the monetary impact through through their words, right? So those of you who have been following my channel, this is the credible threat theory that I'm talking about. How it is that their words impact the economy more, or yeah, probably the economy impacts the economy more than the interest rate cuts themselves. And so when you think about it, this is the uncertainty. This is the tool, the mechanism that they would really like to retain. And uncertainty is the key to it all, right? And this is the likelihood that he sees coming, right? The final scenario is the one that I certainly don't want to see, but have to worry about. In this case, if we were to see significant resurgence in inflation in the second half of 2024, it would be tough to conclude, we were making sustainable progress on inflation this year. While this pessimistic outcome is possible, I put a low probability on it happening, given the recent data we have received. These scenarios highlight that the data will influence how my confidence in inflation returning sustainably to 2% could evolve over time. And this will then influence my view of the appropriate path for policy. This all goes to say that my view of the appropriate path of policy is data dependent. So very interesting to think about these three different scenarios and how very much different they really are. See, a lot of people they want to kind of put everything into a black and white kind of category, right? But really, when it comes to understanding what it is that's happening within the monetary policy, we really have to understand what it is that they are trying to communicate. Remember, this is communication. What I am reading to you right now is communication to the other central bankers out there. I mean, how many times have Christopher Waller come out and explain himself like in this fashion when he was out there on CNBC giving those interviews? Of course not, right? We have to go and look at this stuff for ourselves if we're to truly understand what it is that he was trying to communicate out there, because what he was communicating on CNBC, what he was communicating through the mainstream media and Reuters and corporate propagandized stuff, is really the monetary policy forward guidance that they're trying to push out there, the credible threat part of things. How many people have taken it in? 100% guaranteed rate cuts coming in September. Where? I mean, this is a speech that came out yesterday. What is today? The 18th? Came out yesterday, right? Or today. I don't even know what day it is. That's crazy. But it was one of the 2 days. Tell me, man, what day is it? The 18th or 17th? This is crazy. But this is, and he's talking about what it would take to have a rate cut. See, everybody else has got it locked into the bag. Guaranteed. No doubt about it, right? But what he's saying is far different from that. It's not. And the scenarios in which that it would take for there to be rate cuts is quite significantly different from what it is that would cause them to have to keep interest rates where they are. What the most likely scenario is going to be is one of uncertainty and data dependent and mouthing off about monetary policy in order to guide the markets, because that's really the true monetary policy is the second one. The second scenario is a bit optimistic, but probably a more likely to occur. In this case, the inflation data comes in uneven, not as good as previous few months, but still consistent overall with progress on bringing inflation down towards 2%. Here, with the uneven data, it would be a matter of timing as to when I thought we were making sustainable progress to 2% inflation. In this case, a rate cut in the near future is more uncertain. Yep, more data dependent, guaranteed. Like if you have the markets believing right now, like I think about it right now, if you have the markets believing that there is going to be rate cuts coming into the future, and you got a 100% guarantee on it, they will act as if those rate cuts have already occurred. There is plenty of evidence and communications through the central bankers that by doing this, by pushing that narrative out there through the mainstream media, by using these communication tools, that they can have the forward guidance push the markets in the direction that they are looking for. And he is saying that scenario is the one that they are probably most likely going to experience, is that exact one. See, reading through these speeches, it's difficult to understand. I get it, right? I get it, because the stuff is like so convoluted. It is done in such a weird, like even almost like a language that is spoken on their own. But that's what I'm doing here, is breaking this stuff down, pulling these sections out of the speeches so that we can get a clear understanding of what it is that the voting members of the FOMC are thinking and talking about. So you go and listen to some economist on Main Street. Is he quoting something coming from the direct voting members of the FOMC, or is he coming up with some lunatic policy that is going to fit his agenda or his investment plans? It's a very different communication that's taking place out there when you're getting the information from mainstream media. It's propagandized. I know it is. So you have to read this speech. I left a link down in the description. Go read it for yourself, right? This section is on page 9 of the PDF, right? It's in the monetary policy portion of it. And if you don't want to read it for yourself, you can always join the channel, right? $1 a month, you get to join the channel. We're going to break this speech down in its entirety on Saturday morning. We're gonna come out and we're gonna read word for word everything that's in this speech, so we can get a clear understanding of what it is that Christopher Waller is communicating to these other central bankers, so we understand what it is that's happening within the voting members of the FOMC. See, this is the only way that you can make a decision for yourself. You listen to these other economists, you're making decisions off of their ideas. You read this speech, you internalize this information, you're all of a sudden making decisions for yourself and not even realizing that you're doing it. You're just intuitively just doing it. You're just making the right decisions according to what it is that you have going on in your life, and you're not listening to these other people anymore. You're not freaked out about, needing to dive into gold to save your life. You're diving into gold as an insurance policy, or for whatever reason you want to get into it, but you're not doing it out of fear, right? Maybe you are trying to hedge a situation. Maybe you are trying to diversify. Maybe you are trying to protect some assets and get it away from the third-party claim, and there's no real other way of doing it unless you have gold and silver. Or maybe you're doing it because you're completely freaked out because you've been listening to economists out there who are selling fear in order to acquire the ad revenue on YouTube through views. I know, I've done it. I mean, look at all the titles of all the videos I've done. But how many times have I not left the link down in the description for you to go and do the research for yourself and judge the information for yourself, right? The video is my opinion, right? The links are down in the description for it. So come back on Saturday, join the channel, right? Links are down in the description. There's, you can go to the homepage. There's all kinds of places to get to it. You're going to find that there is all kinds of member-only videos that we have done that are breaking speeches down just like this, right? So that we can, again, internalize it for ourselves. So, hey, UE, I'm surprised that market expects a cut in September. Don't see a case for it myself. Yeah, Joe, I get it too. And I think the closer we get, the market's going to start realizing that they literally pumped the market themselves, drove the stimulus into the economy that the Federal Reserve was ultimately saying was going to need to happen with their rate cuts, but anymore because the markets took care of business. Like, I totally see that happening, Uneducated Economist, how would the interest rate decrease impact the Treasury bond market and factor into the liquidity crisis? Well, I think like right now what we are saying, I think we are really witnessing. Here's what's funny about it. If you see somebody coming out on YouTube saying that get ready for the banking crisis, if you see somebody who comes out and says get ready for the liquidity crisis, if you see somebody who's coming out and saying something like this, most likely it's not going to happen, even if they're telling the truth about it, even if they have the scenario right. They're probably not, because here's the thing. If they know it's coming, then they're going to do something about it, right? And that was the whole point. If they did not step up, if the Treasury did not step up and do its bond buyback program right now, and if the Federal Reserve did not adjust its balance sheet at the same time, these are liquidity issues that would be facing right now. So ultimately, if there is any kind of rate adjustments, right? If they were to lower or decrease or anything that they do with bringing liquidity into the market, if they lower interest rates, if they raise interest rates, that would be pulling liquidity out of the market. Tightening position, stimulating positions, right? Dovish or hawkish. It depends on how it is that you're going to look at it. So if the Federal Reserve was to lower rates, what they would ultimately be doing was trying to add liquidity to the system, right? They're trying to lower rates to get people to borrow money. By borrowing money, people go out there, spend it, buy houses and cars, and go on vacation and all that other stuff, right? Money velocity kind of stuff. I'm scared. All right. Clear Glass Studios. It's awesome. All right. What's up with the membership? Clear Glass Studios, what you have been, like, if you didn't go and get the membership yourself, you have been gifted a membership. And so now you have access to member-only videos. And in those member-only videos, we have broken down speeches just like this one, very similar to the way that I just talked about these three scenarios coming from the Federal Reserve's voting member of, of the FOMC, the Federal Open Market Committee. The membership gives you access to these videos. In these videos, we have really detailed, talked about conversations about each one of these speeches. The comment section is full of incredibly intelligent people who have some really good comments and, additions to the opinions and everything that you could imagine as far as like the diversity of opinions going from both agreements and, disagreements. It's all there within those live streams, within those member-only live streams. And I cannot find a better way to understand the monetary policy than to go through these speeches like this. If you haven't been studying it for the last 15, 20 years like I have, then you got to go and read through literally hundreds of speeches in order to piece together the information like I have done. There's no one single piece anywhere that you can go to, no one video that's going to show it to you. If you do not understand this and internalize it for yourself from all the different views and aspects of what it is that it takes to understand the monetary policy, you're going to be stuck at the whim of some other economist out there who's telling you their opinion, and that's just the way it is. Once you have internalized this stuff, you've got it. Once you start to see it, once you realize the credible threat theory, once you understand flexible average inflation targeting, once you get the idea of like how it is that the neutral interest rate was screwing up their monetary policy, once you understand all these things and you can once you can explain it, then you've internalized it, right? So this is what we talk about. We talk about R-star. They've done speeches on R-star. They've done speeches on Basel III, the end game. They've done speeches on the communications styles that they have used. They've talked about monetary policy. There's all this stuff that is communicated to the other central bankers out there, not to the public, not to mainstream media anywhere, not that I could find. I mean, nowhere. I've looked hard. I mean, I sat around waiting. I'm like, okay, eventually everybody will be talking about the average inflation targeting. And nobody ever did. And the only thing they'll ever talk about is a 2% target, which is not what the Federal Reserve is looking for. And we learn that in these speeches. Like, here, I'll give you, I mean, you guys know, I go over it all the time. Like, all the time I break this stuff down. Where's Powell's speech? It was August, whatever. What was it? August 27th. Where is that damn thing? But you guys know, I mean, in that speech, he talks about it, that appropriate monetary policy is seeking to achieve inflation that is moderately above 2% for some time. All right. Here we go. In that speech, August 27th, 2020. Oh, my sister's calling. Bummer. Okay. Sorry, sis. I can't talk right now. But August 27th, 2020. All right. He talks about how the basically the inflation scenario that had failed to be achieved after the great financial crisis, right? So post the great financial crisis, there was quantitative easing 1, 2, 3, and 4, taking the balance sheet from $850 billion to over $4.5 trillion and still failing to achieve the 2% target that they were looking for. They knew they were screwed. They were done. Like, there was like, okay, monetary policy goes zero. We can't stimulate the economy. We're out of the game. That's it. Like, Federal Reserve is cooked and over. But he came up, they knew that there was going to be jawboning, and that if they could create an inflationary scenario, that they could use an average inflation rate over time as their monetary policy. Listen to this. We have also made important changes with regard to the price stability side of our mandate. Our long-run goal continues to be inflation rate of 2%. Our statement emphasizes that our actions to achieve both sides of the dual mandate will be most effective if long-term inflation expectations remain well anchored at 2%. However, if inflation runs below 2% following economic downturns, like the great financial crisis, right? If it runs below 2% during and never moves above 2%, even when the economy is strong, over time, inflation will average less than 2%. This is exactly the problem that they were facing, right? Again, like, where was it? John Williams' speech, Monetary Policy Strategies for a Low Neutral Interest Rate World, right? Who said that exact same thing. Today, we face an altogether different set of problems stemming from a very low neutral interest rate, a short-term real rate interest, a short-term interest rate consistent with an economy operating at its potential alongside low and stable inflation. Ironically, the problem we need to solve these days is the risk of inflation that is persistently too low rather than too high. So, what did Powell have a problem with? 2% following economic downturns, but never moves above 2% even when the economy is strong. Problem that John Williams needed to solve was an inflation that was persistently too low rather than too high. So it goes on. Households and businesses will come to expect these results, meaning that inflation expectations would tend to move below our inflation goal and pull realized inflation down. To prevent this outcome and adverse dynamics that could ensue, our new statement, not enhance, like a brand new statement, right? That nobody knows. Okay, here we go. And therefore, following periods, okay, where was I? Okay, our new statement indicates that we will seek to achieve inflation that averages 2% over time. Therefore, following periods when inflation has been running below 2%, appropriate monetary policy will likely aim to achieve inflation moderately above 2% for some time. Now, that was 2020, right? When he was saying we have been in an issue where we had persistently low inflation. Monetary policy strategies for a low neutral interest rate world said that the problem that they needed to solve these days was inflation that was persistently too low rather than too high. What did Jerome Powell do? He says, hey, guess what? We're going to have inflation that is persistently high. The problem solving for John Williams' speech back in 2018. In seeking to achieve inflation, here I'm back in Powell's speech. In seeking to achieve inflation that averages 2% over time, we are not tying ourselves to a particular mathematical formula that defines the average. Thus, our approach could be viewed as a flexible form of average inflation targeting. Our decisions about appropriate monetary policy will continue to reflect a broad array of conditions. It will not be dictated by any formula. Of course, if excessive inflationary pressures were to build or inflation expectations were to ratchet above levels consistent with our goal, we will not hesitate to act. Guess what? The problem that, right? Of course, if excessive inflationary pressures were to build, do we have excessive inflationary pressures building? Well, like some people think it's probably going to be persistent, but is it excessive? Right? If, of course, if excessive, right, inflationary pressures were to build or inflation expectations were to ratchet above levels consistent with our goal, long-term inflation expectations still at 2%. It's still anchored well anchored, right? I mean, they say that constantly. We would not hesitate to act. Well, what are you going to do? All right? Well, they're not going to act upon inflationary scenarios because they don't have an inflationary scenario that is excessive. So they're not going to act upon that. See what's happened here? Like, they're looking for inflation. They absolutely need it. They needed it to save their monetary policy. They had talked about it way back here in 2018. They're solving the problem. Like, here's the thing. Like, like the pandemic totally fixed it for them. And I don't mean to be like the conspiracy theorists about it, but it was totally saving the day. Like, the pandemic came in and totally saved the Federal Reserve. Goes right here. John Williams talking about it again. This is when the inflation expectations were still persistently too low. But he's saying that's okay. We can have a situation where we'll have like persistently high inflation. And I'm thinking, now wait a minute, John. Wait a minute. Let's think about this for just a second. You had an inflationary scenario that was persistently too low post the great financial crisis. After taking interest rates to zero, the balance sheet of $850 billion was quadrupled. And yet this did not create the inflationary scenario that you were looking for. Right? See, now this is where it really starts to get confusing for people, because a lot of times people are like, oh man, did you not see how much money they printed? And I'm like, did you not see how much money they printed back in the great financial crisis? I mean, it was a quadrupling of the balance sheet. This last time around was only a doubling. Like, yeah, it was a lot of money. It was a lot more money that was printed up. But what it was a doubling of the balance sheet, where before we had a quadrupling. Very different, right? Very different scenario was taking place back then, and it failed to produce the inflationary scenario that they were looking for. And now it produced the inflationary scenario in my head. I went out and bought all the silver, and I could find, like, I went 100% into silver because I thought for sure there was going to be an inflationary scenario that was going to destroy my world. And as I did that, I ended up finding myself in a position in which that I could have sold out at $50 an ounce, but I thought for sure that there was going to be this hyperinflation and that I was the smartest dude in the world for having it at $50 an ounce and that everybody else should have got in while they could have. And then it trickled all the way down to $13 an ounce or whatever it was, $15 an ounce. And I thought to myself, what in the world just happened? Like, this was supposed to protect me from inflation. All of a sudden, I found myself in a position in which I sold my silver, I'd be underwater. And it took forever to get it back. And people want to tell me that go and buy silver to protect you from inflation. Are you sure? Are you sure you're going to tell me that? Because it took me for years and years to get out of that. To get out of that position in which that silver could be sold right now and actually create a profit. Now, I don't knock the silver, right? Because silver ended up being one of the best things in my life when I needed it as an insurance policy when I didn't have any vehicle. Called up my buddy who had a Tahoe for sale, asked him if he would trade 165 ounces for it, and he said, you know it. And I was on the road again, right? Understanding this stuff for yourself is so important. Reading these speeches is incredibly important. And I understand that not everybody has the time to go through pouring through hundreds of speeches like I have done over the years to accumulate this information, to present it out there. You know, it was like, I don't feel insulted when somebody says, hey, other people are cracking the Fed's code too, and they do it better. And yet I go and I listen to some of these people that they're talking about, and I'm thinking, no, they're not. They are not at all. In fact, if you have ever found a YouTuber out there who is, and I'm not talking about the title, right? The title of their video. I'm talking about their information. If their information itself has ever said, get your money out of the bank before it crashes, before it's too late, right? How many of them said that? How many of them was accurate with having that information? They were right. They were absolutely right. 100%, no doubt about it, right? There was a banking crisis taking place. Silicon Valley Bank was a perfect example of the situation that people were warning about way ahead of time. It was very valid warning. The only problem with it is the Federal Reserve knew about it too. and they had a game plan for that situation. And as much as it sucks to say, yeah, it's a lifeboat. Bank term funding program deployed instantaneously. They knew that banking crisis was coming. Do you think, honestly, like some dude sitting in a car talking about the liquidity crisis is going to like impact the world in a way that is going to destroy it? And I can figure it out and the Federal Reserve doesn't or the Treasury doesn't? Like that doesn't make any sense, right? They have 150 economists, top economists out there that have studied every single corner of the markets. Ben Bernanke came out as a fool to the public, and it worked swimmingly for the credible threat theory. It totally worked. I went back and I listened to some of the things that Ben Bernanke was talking about, and do you realize he's describing some of the situations that we are now facing today back in 2002? Right? Reading through these speeches has given me the ability to see what it is that the Federal Reserve is communicating to the other central bankers out there. And it's scary to see it because what most people believe or think about the Federal Reserve or the central banking system is so false and incorrect. I had a guy who was insulted by some of the things that I was saying on here, saying that I was part of the problem, and he doesn't realize that his inflation expectation remaining elevated is the exact tool that the Federal Reserve needed in order to save their monetary policy. You want to know how to destroy the Fed? You got to do it like I'm doing it. If everybody had the same idea and knowledge that I have about the FOMC and their voting in the way that they're voting, this whole thing would fall apart. It wouldn't work. The fact that they communicate it in the way that they do and have people convinced in the style that they have about what it is that they are trying to achieve, that is not the accuracy of what it is that their true intended goals are. It blows me away. I mean, like, I don't know how it is that they were able to pull it off so well. I mean, I do, because they actually tell you how they've done it. They have, like, you know, they have built up all these communication tools over the last 12, 15 years in order to have this ability to conduct themselves and through the monetary policy, or conduct the monetary policy through the communications of the mainstream media like they do it. It's like, once you see it, once you understand it, it's just like, holy crap, man. I mean, it's like, it's so obvious. And then I hear these other people, all these economists or so-called economists, you know, YouTubers, you know, other people out there, and they don't see it. They don't see it like this. It's like, I don't know. Like, I don't know where it is that, like, they're assuming their information from. Because if it was real valid information, that's just the thing. If it's real valid information, it wouldn't be coming from somebody who is proposing what the monetary policy makers are going to do or should be doing or are doing incorrectly or don't know what they're doing, right? Like, if you can listen to all those people, that's fine. They're not doing the job. Like, this is the people who are doing that job. That's it. Like, and they're communicating to their other people who are doing that job. They're not communicating these speeches to the public. Now, when they do, like Christopher Waller just came out all over mainstream media, and like, if you go and listen to some of the things that were coming out on mainstream media, it was all but like, yeah, we're about ready to do this, right? But that's like, you listen to his speech and he didn't have anything to say like that. What he had to say was that there's 3 scenarios, and the more likely one is going to be one of uncertainty and doubt and, you know, data dependence, and more about job owning and mouthing off than it will be about actual mechanical adjustment of interest rates. All right, man, I'm really going off. Okay, we got 34 minutes into it. I would ask, whose endgame wins? So tired of being blatantly lied to. Well, then don't stress it, man. Like, these speeches aren't lies. Why are you? Okay, here's the thing. I mean, like, you don't like being blatantly lied to, then stop listening. Right? I mean, if you don't like the lies, then don't listen to them. That's easy enough. I gave up on mainstream media a long time ago. The only reason why I listen to it or even follow it is so that I could try and confirm some of my beliefs and my understandings of what's taking place within the Federal Reserve itself. See, like all the other stuff that goes on out there doesn't really impact your life as much as what the FOMC votes on. 12 voting members have more impact on the people of this entire globe than any other 12 people. You could put 12 people in a room, I don't care what the combination is, they have not nearly as much impact on the entire globe as a whole as the voting members of the FOMC. And nobody even knows who the hell they are. They know who Jerome Powell is, who's nothing more than a voice for the FOMC. He's got one vote, right? It's not his decision. There's 18 other members, 11 voting. It's just like understanding what these people are saying and what they're talking about is so much more important. The rest of it is lies. Why listen to them? Like you might listen, sift through the lies looking for the truth, right? Like why? Why do it? Just go and listen to these people's communications to each other to figure out what it is that they are doing for their monetary policy. They're not hiding it. I mean, it's not hidden, right? It's complicated. It's deep. It's like, it takes forever to get through it all, but it's not like it's, a secret or anything like that. But yet nobody wants to communicate it in the fashion that the central banks are communicating it to each other. That's why I'm out here doing this. That's why it sounds like I'm in favor of the Federal Reserve. Like some people call me like some kind of Fed supporter or something like that. It's such horseshit, right? It's not. If you don't understand this stuff, like from this point of view, then what are you going to be listening to? Somebody who's going to say that, they've all screwed up and they don't know what they're doing, and therefore you are going to believe that they don't know what they're doing either, and then you won't be able to make appropriate monetary decisions for yourself because everything will be based off of something that nobody knows what they're doing. I don't believe that. I believe that they know exactly what they are doing. They've been planning it for years. I can date it back through speeches going all the way back for 20 years. Right? I mean, to me, this is not a confusing time. This was well established, well orchestrated, and well done. And it's sad to think that they were able to pull it off in such fashion because I don't know how much economic pain and suffering and sickness and death has happened over the last few years in order for this to be achieved. But that is the case. Once you understand it, once you see it, once you recognize it, it's just fine. All right? I'll accept it for what it is because nothing I can do about it. I've tried to do something about it. Right? Like this is me doing something about it, exposing this stuff to you so that you can understand it for yourself, and hopefully we can spread this message around. We'll essentially destroy the Federal Reserve. Right? You want to end the Fed? This is how we end the Fed. There's no other way of doing it. Okay? I mean, you can fight it all day long. I've been watching. It's 100 years. They've been fighting the Fed for 100 years. There's no way you're going to fight the Fed. You can't do it. What you have to do is destroy it from the inability to no longer keep these type of secrets. Once you understand their strategy, it's over for them. It's done. They can't do it anymore. So that's it. There would, the whole idea of it would be over. Now, here's the problem with it. It's not going to happen. Right? It's not going to happen out there. If I'm the only one, 142,000 subscribers with 20,000 views possibly on this video, that's not going to be enough, right? It won't be enough to spread the word enough, to get the people to understand it enough that it's actually going to impact it enough to make a difference. So understanding that to be the case, then internalize this information for yourself. Understand that there is no 2% target out there, that they're actually going for an average inflation rate over time, that you would understand. Now you understand the reasons for that, them keeping the interest rates extra low, extra long for an extended period of time, even when everybody said that they were doing it on purpose to destroy the economy and all this other stuff, but it wasn't, right? It was to create the inflationary scenario in order to get their monetary policy back. It's like once you see it, it makes so much more sense. It's just everybody thinks that they're confused and uncertain and don't think they know know what's going on or know what they're doing or anything like that. Those are the people who are making piss poor decisions for themselves. All right, moving on. All right, hit that like button twice for you, Simon, because I think you're sincere. Thank you, man. Well, I am sincere. Listen, I don't have anything to sell. I'm selling $1 memberships, right? $1 memberships. You know how long it would take me to make $1 million selling $1 memberships? It's not going to happen, right? So I'm not trying to make $1 million selling my memberships. What I'm trying to do is share this information in a way that you are going to be able to retain it. That's what I'm trying to do. And by you paying $1 for it, you make it serious. Right? You make it serious for you make it serious for me, and that's exactly what it is. It's a serious situation. It's not here to be joked around about, and it's not one to be taken lightly. Right? You can, like, there's a million people out there to listen to. I get it, right? I've listened to a lot of different individuals out there, and I don't knock any single one of them. They all have good, prudent, awesome, deep, relevant information. They all do, right? Every single one of them. However, I don't think anything beats this. I just don't. I've studied so much of this economy. I've studied it in Gresham's Law and Triffin's Dilemma and the Bullwhip Effect and Cantillon's Effect. I've studied all kinds of history of all kinds of scenarios that have happened. And what I've come to the conclusion of is the things that I have talked about here on this channel, I can't see it any other way. Right? And it's not that I don't change my mind on things. It's just that everybody says, well, you haven't looked at this. You're wrong. I have. I've looked at so much. It's just like, it's unreal. I've looked at stuff that you don't want to look at. Things that you shouldn't look at. Right? Made me depressed and like didn't want to participate in anything anymore. Certainly didn't want to participate in the system. Screw that. Right? But then realizing that if you don't participate in the system, then you're gonna suffer in a miserable existence with not having a whole lot of abundance or anything going on in your life. I don't like that. Right? I want to have abundance. I want to have, trips and vacations and cars and awesomeness. Right? That's the kind of stuff that I want in my life. But you don't get it if you don't participate in the system. So understand the system for what it is, and understand how it is that you could step away from the system. Understand how it is that they control the system. And understand it in a way that is in here, right? Not one that says like, well, did you ever listen to this guy? This guy's really smart. He's smarter than anybody else out there, and he says something that's totally different. Yeah, well, I have my own information that I've dug so deep down into that there's no way that you can change my mind on it now. All right? Like if you presented more information to me that I haven't seen yet, that contradicts the information that I am pulling out here from monetary policy of the Federal Reserve, I would like to see it. I really would. Because what you're going to end up showing is some sort of opinion of somebody else who believes of what it is that the Federal Reserve is up to, and not actually talking about the strategies of the Federal Reserve's monetary policy itself. Or else, right? Or else it would be a voting member. They're the ones who are voting on it. They're the ones who are conducting it. There's no way that anybody else could know what these guys are doing better than them. Moving on. Simon is not a genius. He just simply reads the single point of the truth. Yeah, you're right. That's it, man. You're absolutely right. Simon basically is reading the directions of how to build the IKEA furniture. No, you're absolutely right, Will. That's not too far off from the truth, right? I mean, this is the directions right here. Right? They're complicated, they're hard. I mean, sometimes they're probably written in what seems to be appearing to be a foreign language, but it's right here. These are the directions. You're right. All right, caught a live one. Roll right on, Adventure Sean. I'm glad you're here. All right, it would just make you better. What are you talking about? All right. So what are you doing with your money? I tell people, I talk about what I do with my money. But... All right, the simple concept of thrive, not survive. 57-year-old, I'm married to the system. Simon, when do you think gold will drop, brother? Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, as far as like, when do I think gold will drop? I don't think that's necessarily going to be a question that is like, well, here you go. Like predicting stuff like that, it comes down to what do you feel that is going to be taking place going into the future, right? Now, do you feel that there is going to be more like economic chaos, or do you think that things are going to eventually turn around and like we're prosperous time and good times again and all that? So, what scenario, what situation do you feel? Like, I feel that the dollar is going to grow stronger going into the future. Now, if that's the case, then generally you would see gold go down. However, I also see gold going up in the future at the same time as the dollar's going up because we've actually witnessed this taking place over the last few years. Yeah, now gold's had a lot of attention here because it's at its all-time highs, and dollars are not necessarily at their all-time high, but they're strong comparatively to where they've been over throughout history, right? So the dollar is fairly strong comparatively to a basket of world currencies, and it could very well get stronger as the rest of the currencies around the world go into devaluation in order to try and stimulate their economies. We're already seeing them lower interest rates in foreign nations. And if the rest of the world starts to do that and the Federal Reserve stands still, well, the dollar is going to grow ever stronger. And again, this would be a downturn to gold when the dollar grows strong. However, if the rest of the world is feeling that their currencies are going to get devalued, they may want to get out of their currencies and get into a safe haven. And if the dollar still has this idea that, oh no, it's bad devalue or de-dollarization, nobody wants to get into dollar, screw the dollar, where are they going to go? You're going to go into gold, right? So this is an unlikely this is not typically of the situations that we would have experienced from the past. This is very much the milkshake theory. If you watch Brent Johnson's milkshake theory, this is a lot of what he talks about, or a lot of what his theory is saying. So if you believe that the Federal Reserve is going to retain their interest rates at an elevated level while the rest of the world is going to be lowering their interest rates, you could see dollars and gold rise together, right? So there would be no opportunity to buy into gold. Now, if you see a situation in which that the idea of a banking crisis and all that stuff gets alleviated and the safe haven idea is like no longer present and people are not necessarily wanting to sit in gold because gold doesn't really have a return to it. The only return of gold is the idea that you're going to be able to sell it off into the future for a higher price, which is the greater fool theory. And I'm not trying to be insulting when I say that. That is literally what it's called in the investment community. When you have a dumb asset, and it's not because you're stupid for purchasing it, it's just that it doesn't have a return to it. So like an item that has a return to it, like US treasuries or rental properties or even a business or something like that, would be considered a smart asset, if you want to really consider that a smart or dumb asset, where something that just sits there on the shelf but doesn't have any kind of real return to it, no dividend payments, no rent, no nothing like that, then that's a dumb asset, right? Again, fixed asset that doesn't have any other value other than the value that you can sell it for. And then you got assets that have dividend paying properties, rental properties to it, business properties to it. So there's different ways of looking at where it is that you are going to put your money. And again, like when I think about like whether or not gold is going to go down, I don't know if it will. Right? Why would it in this situation? If you have a situation in which the dollar is hated like it is around the world, plus you got the rest of the world devaluing their currency, where are they going to move to? They don't really, I mean, Bitcoin maybe, I mean, Bitcoin on a lesser extent, but most likely they're going to move into gold. Let's cruise down here. This can result in varying degrees of economic growth among countries, leading to big inequality rates. Items are not worth much besides vehicles and real estate. The dollar milkshake theory suggests that the U.S. economy may outperform other economies due to stability and attractive investment opportunities. All right. You bet I follow Brent. Thanks for your take on gold. Yeah, you bet, Jimmy Hat. Yeah, I met Brent. I met Brent a couple of times. In fact, I didn't just talk to him. I mean, we were talking over at the Rebel Capitalist a couple of months ago. And yeah, super chill, super awesome dude. And I love those Rebel Capitalist events. Like being able to go and converse and, hang out and just be in the energy in the community and all that. It's like, you can't really beat that event. It is probably like I mean, I'll give Mike Zuber credit. He had the funnest event that I have been to. Like the community was really elevated and high energy and really like excited and friendly and nice. And not that they're not friendly and nice at the other ones, but like the Rebel Capitalist is a little, like, for lack of a better term, colder, than Mike Zuber's event was. But it's very professional. It's very like prestigious feeling, like, all together with the high level speakers and everybody that's there, and it's like it's really good. Yeah. All right, let's cruise down here to the bottom. I don't think UE claims silver is a safe haven. I don't really think. I don't know. Like, I mean, what is a safe haven? Like, I mean, silver burned me bad, right? It also saved my ass. So it's just like I love and hate it at the same time. I mean, it took me forever to get back into a position in which that I could sell the silver and feel like, I would get my money back out of it. And so during all that time, I suffered through alcohol, depression, and losing my house and all kinds of stuff. Like, it sucked. Like, I'm looking at this pile of silver, like, and it's like, and then one day it like totally saved my ass. So it's just like, okay. I got you. All right. I got you. My expectations of you, Silver, is really low. Really, I have no expectations from you. And that's the way I'm gonna put it. Right. And so since I have no expectations of you, whatever you do is none of my business, right? Because my expectations of you is more about how many I have and not what you're worth, right? Because that's like that expectation's now out the window. I just don't care anymore. And so when I had that sort of expectation of it, it was just like, okay, it's my insurance policy and it doesn't matter how much it's worth. It's more about how many you have. I realized, wow, actually you can accumulate quite a bit of it and not even care like how much you've paid for it or how much it's like how much you've invested. Like it just, that part doesn't matter anymore. And I tell you, man, having a little bit of silver gives you the ability to sleep at night. Like when you have the ability to have enough silver to like make rent, like you could like cash in your silver and pay rent, your ability to sleep at night just goes, like, you're so relaxed, like so much more relaxed. And the more that you get out of debt and the more that you build up those savings, the easier it is to sleep, right? What ends up happening is that you eventually get to your point that you start pushing and you start getting your expectations up again. Oh no, what's going to happen to my money? What's going to happen to my savings? They're going to take it all. They're going to all this. And then your expectations start to rise, and the anxieties start to build from it again. It's important to understand that if you are getting into that point, right? See, this is why a lot of people follow this channel. Like a lot of them who already understand money, they're not following me for like financial advice. They're looking for like lumber information and stuff. Right? But there's a lot of people out there who are like, man, I want to kind of follow along with what it is that you've done, right? At 40 years old, broke with nothing, had like no idea what it was I was going to do, in debt and all that other stuff, to be able to, within 7 years, be, doing this on YouTube and, buying a house and, saving up and having investments and stuff like that. It's like, it's incredible how fast I really did it. And I understand that not everybody's going to be able to do a YouTube channel, but I really could have done it with a second job. And I did YouTube like it was a second job. Like I put that much work into it in order to come up with the research and studies and practice trying to just put the videos together and everything that went into it. Yeah, it was like a second job. And it still feels somewhat like I put that second job worth of effort into it on a regular basis. And that's really what it takes, right? So you don't have to have a YouTube channel, but you do have to work a lot. In order because a regular job ain't gonna cut it anymore. I mean, it's just like, it's even a good job sucks. It doesn't matter what you paid for it. It is some vendor or two is selling it on eBay. Besides precious metals and a few things. Dropping like night, guys. All right, Pud, see ya. All right, second jobs or starting a business that can turn a profit quick is great. Everyone should do it for the bit to put themselves on a good track. Yeah, absolutely, Will. And I think that's probably like one of the things that I think like most people just don't know that it's in them to do it. Like I really honestly feel like a lot of people are just hung up on they're hung up on like maybe it's a fear thing or I don't know. Like I because I mean I try to think of myself like what it was that it took me forever, right, to finally like, feel like get off my ass and do something. And really I think it's like a lot of it is just the mental way of that, you're kind of thinking. Like when I was doing construction, I worked fairly hard all day, right? 8, 9, 10 hours a day, framing houses together or doing whatever. It was a pretty hard job. And at the end of that, I just wanted to drink beer. Like I just couldn't wait to just like chill out and just drink beer all night long. And right then, what I had done is I had pursued excellence like all day. And I was in a position in which that I could have done something with that excellence. And instead, what I did is I chased pleasure and pissed all the excellence away, literally, right? And so most people have this sort of experience within their life, no matter, even if they're like fairly disciplined and they don't drink alcohol or anything like that, they still end up like going towards they do this excellence all day long. They tried real hard, they went to school, got a degree, built up a business, they chased this, excellence all day, built up this thing, and then they find themselves deeply, terribly in debt pursuing pleasures. And they got an RV and they got, a timeshare and they got all this, fancy cars and they got a big house and all this stuff. And so they worked real hard chasing this excellence and then pissed it away by buying into this pleasure. But, for them, they may tell themselves, hey, I enjoy all this stuff that I have purchased, right? And that's very cool. Like, that's good. But then you're still having to force yourself into chasing excellence so that you can have this pleasure. Now you're stuck in this thing, right? You're not like pursuing excellence and then going to do whatever you want. Now you have all these pleasures that you have chased that are locked down on you, and you're forced to chase the excellence. And this is not exactly a fun position to be in. So now, understanding that there is a way that you could just be always pursuing the excellence, and that the pleasure is found in chasing the excellence. Right? And so when most people are thinking, okay, I've worked hard all day, now it's my time to drink beer, smoke weed, play video games, right? And now this is the pleasurable experiences that destroys all the excellence that they were just now seeking all day. It would be better for them to just read a book, right? Because at least that's a little trickling of excellence, especially if it's a book that's educating them, right? But ultimately destroying the whole thing by purchasing beer, by purchasing weed, by purchasing the shit that you don't really need in your life, you destroy all the excellence that you had pursued. Now, by pursuing excellence and then finding things and enjoying that you enjoy in the pursuing of excellence, that that business that you're doing, the YouTube videos that you're making, the crafts that you're putting together, whatever it is, right? There's something out there that you really enjoy that is the pursuing of excellence, whether it's a craft, a service, a skill, or something out there. And if you are pursuing that thing on a regular basis, you're going to get a good feeling from doing that. What ends up happening is that instead of trying to go for the pleasurable experience of smoking weed and drinking beer and playing video games, you're enjoying the experiencing of pursuing this excellence that is carrying you down a particular path that you're not even quite aware of where it's going. And that's the fun that you are finding within it, is that there is somewhat of a fearful experience, but the magic is found in that fear. So you're actually facing the fear, which is actually a sign of courage, right? Which is the fun and excitement and stuff that then brings in all the greatness of what the universe has to provide in the abundance of flow, or in the flow of abundance, right? It's just, it's not like I'm not trying to talk like in some kind of crystal gripping hippie weird way. This is what happened to me. This is how I figured it out, like how it occurred to me. Like I didn't even know what was happening. My YouTube channel was taking off. I got this horrible imposter syndrome going as I'm being invited to Rebel Capitalists and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, what in the world is happening here, man? I mean, this isn't me. Like I'm the drunk guy playing shooting pool and hanging out at the bar. I'm not the dude who's up on stage trying to explain monetary policy or talking about lumber industry or any of that. That's not me, right? So I felt incredible, horrible imposter syndrome as the channel is taking off because I didn't know what the hell was happening, right? So it took time to finally be in that energy, to be in that position to say, no, man, this is really the real deal. You've got it going on. You've got it, You've got an audience who's listening. You're nailing the lumber industry, dude. You've got it. Like, where's the imposter at, right? It's all in your head. And it literally took me a while to figure that out. And so when you think about like most people who are experiencing something of like, hey, I worked hard all day and now it's my time to chill out and do whatever the hell I want, right there. Boom, right? Step one, figure out how to chase more excellence till you go to sleep, right? Whether it's studying, reading, learning, crafting, doing skill enhancement, whatever, right? Figure it out, right? There's you know in your heart of hearts when you're chasing pleasure and when you're chasing excellence. You know it, right? And you will know when you're chasing excellence and it's feeling good and you're thinking, man, I'm actually getting pleasure from this. You will feel it. You will know that you're in it, right? And at that point, you will find opportunities and everything to start coming. Like, it can't help it. It's almost like if you are providing something useful, if you're being useful and honest and deliberate without any expectations, it's like it's almost as if it's forced upon you. It's like like, here you go, there it is. That's the keys. That's the key ingredients, or whatever. But you have to pursue it. You have to. I mean, you have to stay in that position, right? You can't just do it for a year and say, screw it, it doesn't work, I'm going back to the bar, right? It doesn't work like that. You have to stay in it forever. And you will notice, and you will see it. Like, if you do it, and you do it consistently for years, and then step back, say, hey, I've worked real hard for these last years. I'm gonna take a little easy. I'm gonna enjoy some of this stuff for myself. I'm gonna, me time, right? I'm gonna do some me time after working hard for years and years, and you'll watch how fast the deterioration begins. You'll be like, man, it was working so swimmingly. It was like working on its own before. I mean, all of a sudden, now it doesn't. Why? It's because you've been pursuing the pleasure and not the excellence. All right, guys, enough with me. Getting off porn and a bad diet, the toughest drugs. Yeah, absolutely, Kurt. Yeah, got to stay away from the porn. Stay away from the porn because I didn't realize it before because somebody asked me about the whole, like, I don't even know what it's called, like, because I've been married for my entire life. Like, I wouldn't know what it would be like to not have, have that kind of thing in my life. Anyhow, but, I hear, like, this whole idea of, like, not masturbating in order to retain, like, the creative power within inside of you, right? And this again is like this weird crystal gripping hippie thing, like whatever, this rise of the manpower or whatever. I don't know what the hell to describe it, right? Gato stuff, I don't know, right? But when I heard about that and I was listening to somebody describe it, I'm thinking that's probably true, right? This is probably very true. Because if you retain that energy, what you are doing is you are going to actually focus in on what it is that naturally, as a human, as a man, what it is that you would need to pursue in order to acquire the things that would be needed to start a family. Like, that is the power within you, right? Like, it's hard to describe, I guess. But having kids really explains a lot of it, right? Because, like, ultimately, what is the purpose of every human on existence, right, on the planet? It's to procreate. It's to make another human of yourself, right? That's that's the goal of every living thing on the planet. And by blasting that away, right, what you're doing is you're giving up what it is that's inside of you that would drive you to acquire the things that you needed in order to do that. Right? In order to have that family, in order to, to have, kids and, have your genes pass on. Anyway, I'm going to get off of that. Think and Grow Rich talks about that. Conserving energy is challenging, though. Absolutely it is, absolutely. And, I mean, especially coming from like, I mean, like, what am I, like, who am I to talk, right? I've been married for my entire life since I was, 18 years old. I've been with my wife. So, right. It's not, but I mean, I understand like the concept, the idea behind it, right? Because it makes a lot of sense. How long before AI and robots are ambiguous? I don't know. I was joking around about it earlier today. I was thinking, someday that I'm gonna have to use a forklift, and I won't even have to get out of my seat of my office. I'll be able to like operate the forklift from my office chair, and we won't need anybody like yard guys. You just put the lumber right on a truck, and it'll deliver itself to the job site and stuff. In fact, I don't even know if there will be much need for me at all. What do you think of private equity firms destroying America? Um, yeah, I did some videos on private equity. I did one that was a pretty good one talking about SeaWorld. Because really you think about it, like private equity comes in and they buy a company essentially for what they could liquidate it for. And and then they stretch it to like, the absolute thinnest to try and squeeze as much profit out of it as they can before they do like, absolutely liquidate the whole thing. And so you think about some of the destructive powers of an institute of private equity coming into an institution like a hospital or something like that, and completely like mismanaging it down to the absolute, like milking it for every little dime it's worth, and then at the very end just selling it off, just liquidating the whole thing. You think about it, like they don't have any consideration of what it is that the product is providing. The only thing that they're looking at is the money part of things. So yeah, it sucks. It's a kind of a greedy situation, and when you think about it in that fashion, but ultimately, like, what are you going to do about it, right? I mean, I mean, I guess it's just, it's part of the hoardness or something. um, how did you beat depression and kick alcohol? Um, I don't. To be honest, the alcohol part of thing I did cold turkey. It was really difficult though, because really what you end up finding out is that you're probably drinking because you have mental issues going on. Like you're blocking out whatever childhood trauma impacts, or something, right? There's something going on in there that's gotten you to drink every single day that you're trying to hide from. And so what'll end up happening is that you will quit drinking and then realize that the depression really starts to ramp up. Like you're drinking because you're depressed, but you're actually masking that up. So you don't really feel depressed because you're drunk all the time. But as soon as you give up drinking, now you feel the depression, you feel all the anxieties, you feel the, all the stuff, right? All the stuff that you've been covering up. And like for me, I'm doing it since I was 20 years old. All of a sudden now here it is present, and you got to deal with it. And now that isn't easy, right? Because now you got, like you thought, man, all I had to do was just give up alcohol. No, now work begins, right? Now because like giving up alcohol is easy. You just don't do it, right? It's hard not do it. Like you want to do it, but that's hard enough to just not do it. But when you give up alcohol and you have to start thinking correctly, and you have been in an alcohol based consciousness, you don't have any clue on how to think. Like you're like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense when somebody says it. You're like, of course I know. 1 + 1 is 2. Okay, right? No, I know how to think. No, right? You don't know how to think properly. You're and, and it's and it's not for me to like be able to describe it, or anything like that, because I don't think that's my place in anything, right? But ultimately, you have to look down into yourself and you have to figure out what it is that you were covering up, right? I mean, was it mom and dad's divorce? Was it, a death in the family? Was it, wife leaving you? Was it something, right? Was it coming back from war? I mean, again, like I'm not the one who should be like trying to coach anybody or even give that, sort of ideas of, therapy. Like I'm not that dude. But once you see it, once you recognize it, what it is, now you got something that you can deal with, right? And you go and you start figuring that part out. Well, then you start figuring out, okay, well, these were the things that was, it's like, I mean, like, is it a magic trick? It's not, right? It's hard. And it's hard every day. Like, I haven't drank for, 9 years or something like that. 4 o'clock every day, I think about, man, what it would be like to have a nice cold beer after work. Every day. It's every day. That doesn't go away. It'll never. I've come to the conclusion that will never go away, right? And so I could be like, damn, mad about that. That every day I feel this and I want it every day, or I just think every day, here it comes, and this is what it feels like to be addicted, because that's what it is, right? It's an addiction, even after 9 years. And then once I get in my truck, it's gone. Like, I don't have that feeling anymore. It's just like, it's just a trigger moment in the day. I can't seem to get rid of it. And it's usually around 4 o'clock, right, that it happens. And so, just understand it. These like, when you feel it, that's it, man. That's addiction. That's what it feels like. Sit in addiction and feel it. Just feel what it's like. This is what it's like. It's frustrating. Yep, that's right. I'm irritable. Yep, that it's all that stuff, right? What are you gonna do? I'm gonna go sit by the beach because I don't like anything. And, at least the beach is fun, and that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to sit there and feel addicted and deal with it. Right? And that's hard because you don't want to, you don't want to feel it, it's just like it's in you. It's like, I don't want to do it. Especially if you drink for a long time, then it's physical, and that's really hard, right? So if it's physical, then you got to then you got to fight that off too. And especially if it's really long, then you probably have to have some medical help with that. You have to make the decision for yourself. Like, there's nobody going to come to you and say, hey man, today's your day. You know that, right? Like, the only person who's ever going to come to do that is going to be you. And usually it's probably going to be because you have hit rock bottom somewhere. You lost your wife, you lost your kids, you lost your job, you lost your house, you lost all the stuff, and you're like, dang, man, I don't want to think about this anymore. All right? I mean, you know. So you can, you can see the path that you're on, and you can say, okay, well, I'm going to go down that path, or today I'm not going to drink. Right? And you're going to feel addiction. Excellent conversation. Thanks for being real, bro. Yeah, Neo Drifter, you bet, man. I mean, I know this helps for a lot of people, and put that there so I don't forget. I know it helps a lot of people, and it's something that I never really thought that or have anticipated or expected from this channel was, to have that happening. Like, to be talking about my story, talking about the alcoholism, and then have people come out and say, dude, I've watched your videos and you inspired me, and I haven't drank for, 3 months. I haven't drank for 6 months. I had people come to me and say, man, I've been well over a year now, and I feel great, and I'm like, the family's feeling great, and everybody's happy, and there's this huge change happening, right? And it takes years. Like, they come back to, like, they tell me, yeah, I haven't drank for 6 months. I feel great, right? But then they start coming to me, like, now it's like, since this community has been here for going on 7, 8 years, I have people who are now coming to me and saying, like, yeah, it's been years since I've drank, and you wouldn't believe the huge change, the parallel shift that had taken place, right? And I never would have thought that would have come from my videos. Right? Like, never would I have ever, I mean, to hear, like, even out of all the stuff that has happened, to hear those stories like that, it still tugs so hard from the center. It's just like, man, I can't believe that has taken place. Out of all the stuff, all the experiences. Because there's so many people who struggle, and they try so hard. And I see it. I see it all the time. As you wouldn't believe it. Like, I know a lot of people. When you work at a lumber yard, you see a lot of dudes come through the yard, right? A lot of customers, a lot of contractors, a lot of builders, a lot of laborers, and stuff like that. And when you're in the game for 20 years, plus years, 25 years, you see people go through it, right? You see them build their business, and then you see, like, the issues, You see him hanging out at the bar more, and you see the divorce, and you see the the downfall. You know, and like, what do? It's just like at any given time they could have shifted that. They could have changed, but it was they could never fix it out. They could never figure it. You know, usually it comes down to a lot of suppression, like suppression pain, suppression of anxieties of what's coming in the future, depressions from the past. You figure this stuff out, and then you don't have to do it anymore. Can you scroll up and answer my question? I wouldn't let me post it. Larry Bird. Okay, I'll scroll up. Where is it? Larry Bird. Lucky lady. Jeez, how far back is it? Dude. Larry Bird. Kirk King. Get a girlfriend, bro. All right, Larry. Okay, you're talking to somebody else. All right, did you stop drinking all of a sudden or lean off of it? Okay, Larry. Yeah, for the most part, I just kind of quit. I did drink like a couple of times, like after I had quit, but I don't know, like, I couldn't tell you like the last time I had a drink. Like, I mean, I was like pretty much like giving it up, and there was a couple of times that I had, like I had a few beers or something like that. It wasn't like I was getting like really drunk or whatever, but I hadn't like given it up completely. I don't know when that finally happened. Like, I don't remember the day. I don't remember the last beer I had. I don't, it wasn't like an incident or a particular day or something like that. So to me, it was just like it was over, and that was it. And like, a few weeks had gone by, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess I hadn't drank for that time. And I remember I was just really aggravated about it, like, saying, I'm not going to, I wanted to, but I just didn't, and I didn't know how many days had gone by. And it was just like, it's just been a while, and Sarah had gone off to rehab. And when she got back, it was like, I didn't count. I wasn't thinking about it. She knew the date that she got out of rehab. So she kind of counted on, remembered on those dates. So it was just like, I kind of followed along with her, but I had, I don't, I didn't. I just quit. I just stopped. And it didn't go over well. Like, I mean, like I said, it was hard, and there was a lot of issues that came from it. All right. This guy is really helping me. 2 days now watching, and I just feel understood. The channel is, in a way, raising me like a true brother. So grateful for you. Yeah, JV. Well, we have a lot of great dudes on here, man. I mean, if you're brand new to the channel, just give it some time, man. We got a great dude who hangs out here all nighter. All nighter is one of the best dudes you could ever meet, and he is everywhere. He has met and connected and networked with more YouTubers than you could ever could possibly imagine. Like, it's awesome to see guys like him in our community here, especially with some of the things that he is doing right now with his, building up of his network, building up of his, of his starting of his empire, and I'm really glad to have guys like that around. And he's not the only one. There's lots of guys here who are dedicated watchers, viewers to the channel, who are business minded investors. There's people who are young, kids looking to try and, figure out what's going on within the economy. We got a lot of really good dudes who show up here. And so, yeah, stick around for a while, and I'm glad you're enjoying the show. You ever see Lord Humongous anymore? I don't. I haven't seen Lord Humongous pop up in a very long time. I miss that dude. Alright, the government didn't want me asking that question. Hey Simon, I thank you for the uneducation you offer for free. You, sir, are a good man helping your fellow man with their problems and a positive influence to your viewers. Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. That was really cool of you, Eric. You're very generous for someone who had addictions. Well, thanks. I mean, what are you going to do, right? I mean, it's like, I didn't have anything. So if I don't have anything, it didn't matter, right? Like, I mean, to me, this is the thing. I was telling Sarah, I was just like, I finally came to the understanding that there's nothing I can do to force an outcome, right? Forcing the outcome is a bad situation. You shouldn't just force it, just let it occur. And it's hard to have that because I have attachments, right? I have attachments to outcome, and that is the exact roadblock that most people put in front of themselves is by having an attachment to the outcome. Having no attachment to the outcome and just enjoying the process. That's it. That's all of it right there. And by letting go of the outcome of what is coming, it gives me a much better sense of relief of what it is that I can do out here because I can't screw it up if I don't care about the outcome. And so what came down to the heart of that was I had to tell Sarah, it was just like, if YouTube ended tomorrow, that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. And, to think that the lives that have been touched and the changes that have been made, if that's all there ever was right there, it would be enough. It was amazing. Everything about it, right? The whole experience so far was anything that I could have, more than I could have ever asked for. Right? So again, if it ended tomorrow, that was pretty cool, right? That was a pretty cool deal. And I know it's not going to end tomorrow, right? So my expectations of what it can do and where it's going to go and where it's going to happen, I've given up on them. I've given up on the expectations of it. I just don't care. Like the idea that I'm going to have a book or a course or anything, I'm going to still do that. I'm going to work on it, but I've given up on it. I pushed myself to try and come up with something. I was stumbling. I just didn't feel right. So whatever, right? What does work is pushing the memberships. Okay, fine. It's kind of like teaching courses. Let's do it that way, right? Let's push memberships and grow the channel up through memberships, and hopefully that will provide people with the ability to, then learn this stuff for themselves. Yeah. Let's go check out that super chat. All right, Larry Bird. Question was, when will economic collapse happen and government roll out the stable coin? Well, the stable coin's already rolled out, though, bro. See, that's the thing, Larry. I think it's all taking place right now. I don't think it's going to happen in a single event. I think it's occurring, right? I mean, you think about it, like the Federal Reserve is pushing for regulations of stablecoins. Stablecoins already exist. Right? It's only a matter of time before they start becoming more prevalent within even think about it, like everybody kind of has their own tokenized coin, like their own stablecoin version. Even PayPal has like their stable coin, kind of thing, like their own unique token, like PayPal token or something. So everybody's doing it right now. It's not a matter of them rolling it out. It's rolling right now, right? And every day it's another little step closer to it. That's why people can't stop it from happening. Like you can say, I'm not going to participate in that. I'm not going to do it. I'm only going to use cash. Well, then one day you're going to find that it's such a nuisance. You just won't have any other choice. And you're going to be like, damn, I'm going to have to step in line like everybody else is. And I mean, like you can try and fight it. Like I'm down, let's fight it. I don't know how you're gonna do it, but I got cryptocurrencies, I got gold and silver, and I got some skills. I mean, let's do it. Let's figure it out how to do it without the fiat currency system. Let's figure it out without dollars. Let's figure it out without the stable coins. It's not gonna work out very well for us, right? I mean, I've tried. I've thought about it. I've theorized. I've tried to get out of the system as much as I could, and none of that works out very well. They're reducing Walmarts to have cashiers again and better clothing. All right, what time is it? An hour 23. I guess what time is it? We got 132 people watching with 104. If you get it up to 132 likes, we'll carry it on for another little bit longer. Otherwise, we'll call it quits at 1:30 or at an hour and 30 minutes. So, Let's see here. Bartering hubs are popping up some places, but yeah. I mean, I use the Facebook Marketplace, like, groups and stuff like that. And there's some pretty good ones around here. Like, there's one free on the beach where you can, like, just give stuff away. Other ones are buy and sell or trade or whatever. And there's a lot of those that are very frequently trading items. They're not actually, trading, dollars or anything. So, I mean, I think that community can actually grow quite prevalent, especially if you have it in a like app sort of setting where you can get a broad group of your area. So then you can display something and it's not like just a secret to the people who know, but like everybody can see it. You have a barter system done something like that and it could become quite prevalent. Right on. Wayne Smith, thank you so much for the $2. Simon, I and 142 others are behind you, brother. Thank you, Wayne, man. I really appreciate the $2 and the support, because this is it, man. This is what I want to do. This is how I really want to try and pursue the things in my life that I think would just bring the most benefit to the world. And I don't know if I can necessarily do that from having my day job on a regular basis. I can do a lot. I can do a lot from there, but I think I could do more. And I think I could do more if I was able to get away from, say, the day job and move and broaden out into do more speaking engagements, do more traveling around, doing more, I don't know, maybe teaching of courses or something like that in locations or something, or teaching this theory. I don't know what it would take to do it, but you guys are watching it happen right now, and you're building you're building it up. You're building the community as we speak. It's happening a dollar at a time, and I'm just like, I'm loving watching it grow. We're like, I think today I saw it at 926 members. We're like almost to 1,000 members. Like, one day it'll be at 10,000 members, and I can't even imagine. I don't even know what it's going to look like. And so, again, my expectations of that are pretty low. I don't really, think about like what's going to happen when that day comes. It's just, imagining the day and what that would be like, and having that, as far as part of the channel and part of my life and pursuing of what it is that we're doing here. All right. Where are we at here? Your advice is far more productive than 90% of other guys talking economics. Thank you, Jimmy Hat. I really appreciate that, man. And I agree. Like, I listen to these other YouTubers out there, or a lot of other people, and I'm not saying that their information isn't good. It's pretty entertaining in a lot of sense too, and then, for me, for a guy who's just, doing a live stream sitting in his car, a lot of these other guys have put a lot of effort into their videos. Like, there's a lot of editing, there's a lot of like, graphs and showing of, different stuff to put it all together to create like, a nice, entertaining 10 minutes of your experience. Here I am for an hour and a half occupying your time. We're talking about conversations, but I think what it is that we're talking about is internalizing information so that you can walk out there in the world, and when these people are talking their gibberish, you're like, okay, yeah, I got my own point of view, thanks. All right, UE and TED Talk would be great. Yeah, Harrison, I think actually, I think my mom like sent an application for me to do a TED Talk, but I never did hear back from them. So, uh, separation of entertainment and information. Yeah, it is, and that's just the thing. It's a very difficult and fine line to be there, because you can come out with some really, really good information, but it's so boring that nobody's going to watch you, right? So you have to be somewhat entertaining, to watch. And I mean, I'm not trying to say that like I'm an entertainer out here, but I try to crack some jokes every once in a while. I try to make it personable. I try to make it in a way that you can relate to, and talking about it from my own point of view and telling some of my stories and stuff like that. That is entertaining. And I mean, I get it. Like, anybody could really do that if they felt comfortable enough to actually get out there on the internet and like, spill their guts, so to speak. But once you do it a few times, it's not so bad. Like, you kind of get used to it, and people enjoy it, and then they get to know who you are, and you get to kind of know them, and then it's just like pretty soon it's like, hanging out with with your bros, you know? And that's really what it feels like to me. It's not, it's like, I never wanted it to feel like work. At one point last year, even the year before, it felt like work. It felt like I had to do it in order to make my house payment. I had to do it in order to get in. And eventually I just let it all go. I was just like, okay, I'm not going to pursue sponsorships. I never pursued them. I'm just not, you know, I wasn't going to accept them anymore when they were offered. That's what it came down to. And I was just like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to pursue the money. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. I'm just going to try and make out, put out and make good videos and try to understand this monetary policy as best I can so that I can explain it from the working class point of view so that we can all understand it for ourselves. And I think it's working. To me it is. And alrighty, guys, you have been absolutely awesome. We have 107 people watching with 121 likes. Oh, you had to go and throw the super chat in there. All right. Thank you. It's amazing to be able to hang out with you, brother, and the whole UE crew, too. Yeah, you bet, man. PP, thank you for being here. I hope you enjoy the videos. I hope everybody's enjoying them, and I hope you do take something from them, because I know a lot of people are, or else you wouldn't keep coming back. And I know I repeat myself a lot in these videos, but I understand too that you know what I'm trying to say. Repetition is going to be what it is that then gets you to understand and internalize it for yourself. I've read these things literally hundreds of times, like monetary policy strategies for a low neutral interest rate world. I'm surprised that I haven't memorized that speech by now. I have read it literally hundreds of times, right? Over and over again, because it is so telling. Right, so telling of what happened during the pandemic. Like this speech right here, like spilled the beans, right? But again, nobody really knows it. But since I repeat it over and over again on this channel, we know it and we talk about it, and we won't let John Williams, forget about it or sweep it under the rug, because now that we have completely exposed it in our theories and our understanding of it, we'll never let it go. Right? It's now locked inside there. Thank you so much, BP. I really appreciate the $4.99. You guys have always been so supportive of the channel, and I really appreciate it. Really appreciate you all. Okay, comment right after the stream on the video. Yeah, thank you, Will. Yeah, please do come back. Like everybody who's on the stream right now, soon as I'm done, go right back onto the stream once it's uploaded and comment. Say like talk about what a great stream it was, or talk about joining the membership, or do something like that, and it'll totally help support the Uneducated Economist and everything we're doing here. So. Alrighty. Keep on, brother. I appreciate all your repetition. Thank you for your knowledge and guidance. Yeah, you bet. Adventure Sean, I really appreciate you, man. Hey, UE, when will the housing market flip? At some point, supply will overtake demand. Yeah, but I think you would actually have to have an increase of supply in a situation, like to have that sort of situation be taking place. Like, where is the supply increasing? Is it increasing from new builds? Is it increasing from foreclosures? Neither one of those places seem to be taking place. Is the inventory increase coming from sales, like just people literally wanting to sell their home? If that is the case, then they're probably going to want to get the highest price for it, and you wouldn't see necessarily a housing market flipping over. I don't see a housing market flipping over, not anytime yet. Look for unemployment to rise significantly. If unemployment rises significantly, then let's talk about the housing market again. But until that happens, I don't think there's gonna be a rolling over. UE, I listen to you at work, even if at times I have no idea what the fuck, what the WTF, what you're talking about. All right, man. That's cool, Larry Bird. I really appreciate you listening. But you stick around, keep listening, because even if you didn't understand it the first time, I'm going to probably say it again some point in the future, and then it'll click, right? It'll be like, oh, okay, I got it. Finally, that part finally did it for me. That's what I needed to hear in order for all the rest of this stuff to start making sense. So just keep listening, just keep listening, because I'm not changing my tune. Right, guys? I mean, I don't, like, I mean, when it comes to the housing market, I was nervous as hell as buying this house. I was on board with everybody else, thinking that once they raised the interest rates, the housing prices were going to come down. I thought that I was going to be underwater on this house. That is not what happened. I had to reevaluate what it was that I was looking at that would, cause my reasons to be incorrect. I have looked at those reasons. I have now come to the understanding of what it is that I saw that was incorrect about it. Mainly, I was not thinking about what it was that people would have in their possession when that market started to rise, which is an elevated housing market, which is going to make it very difficult to then try and move into another market, right? As far as leaving this house for another house, which froze the market up. And that was something that I really wasn't anticipating happening, right? I mean, it was like, I mean, it's obvious when you think about it now, but at the time, I wasn't like, that wasn't part of my considerations of what was going on. So now that I look back on it and I say, okay, that makes a lot of sense to me. But other than, maybe the little bit on the housing market, on how I was viewing that, I haven't changed anything on my stance on inflation, monetary policy, where I stand on the lumber market. None of that stuff has changed, not one little bit. I stick to my guns, my beliefs, my understanding of this, and I don't really deviate from it very much because of how I got the information, right? I didn't get it from somebody who is confused about the situation. I mean, I'm not saying that the Fed isn't confused about the situation. I mean, they very well could be, but I'm getting their monetary policy pretty well dialed in. So, all right, I'm gonna go. Uneducated Economist, you guys have been great. Thank you very much for being here. We have 134 people watching now with 130 likes. And that's $16.97 in super chats, because you guys are always so generous with the super chats and supporting the Uneducated Economist. I just can't help it. I got to keep reading comments. I just don't want to let them go. Yeah, if it's deflation, hyperinflation, but they're trying to fight it by saying things are worth less than they worth, in my perspective anyway. They don't know much about real life. Well, I can agree with that. Alrighty. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Uneducated Economist. Oh, Saturday, right? Saturday, I will schedule the live stream, member only live streams, to break down Christopher Waller's speech here. And yeah, we'll internalize all that information. So come back on Saturday for that. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.